hello. That's what I've always thought about that statue, by the way. Just sort of, he's looking up at the trees going like, oh, birds pooped on my head. So I'm outside the Ministry of Defence. I don't know if you've ever been down here before. It's not a very good looking building. It's from the 1930s. It was built because of austerity back in the 1930s. There in the background is the old Imperial Ministry of Defence, which is a much more impressive building. From the time of Queen Victoria, a very proud and a very lucrative and successful time when we had an empire. And the reason I'm down here on the embankment is to show you something new that they've built, or they are building. The new Scotland Yard, the new police headquarters, which they're building because of essentially austerity. You can see it just down here. You can see Big Ben in the background, and you can see the famous rotating triangle of New Scotland Yard, which they've recently just installed. I don't know if you've ever read the original novel by Mary Shelley, Frankenstein's monster, or the modern Prometheus. But I recently read it, and I came across it because I was researching this new Scotland Yard building, and it was a bit odd. I was researching the architectural parts of the building, and I came across Mary Shelley's novel about Frankenstein, and it's actually quite apt. It's really apt, in fact, really, really appropriate, because the orange building that you can just see here, that's the original New Scotland Yard from the 1880s, or they moved into it in the 1890s. And so it's like the old carcass now augmented and reborn into the new one. So it's like they've created a new being. And the more actually you analyse it, the more that the Scotland Yard and the modern Prometheus actually are really, really similar. Because when you read the novel of Frankenstein, I remember the old films and TV things about like Frankenstein's monster. He's kind of a lumbering, monstrous idiot, essentially. He has low motor control. He can't really speak properly. He's like, "Muh," and all that kind of stuff. But actually in the novel, it's completely different. In the novel, he is extraordinarily agile, superhuman speed, superhuman strength and agility and endurance, and he's also supremely intelligent. You should look up the first thing that Frankenstein's monster says to Frankenstein when he confronts him, and it's things like "thou art" and all of that kind of stuff. He literally speaks in like a Shakespearean tongue. He's like highly intelligent and highly moral. He's like preaching at his creator about moral values. And in the last few weeks I've been getting a lot of flack about some of my police videos and how I talk about the police, and people saying, well, basically just having a go at me for being critical of the police. But I am very critical of the police, because I do believe that although they may have been formed as a super moral entity and a civilian force, they have over the decades become somewhat less moral as an entity, and less like a civilian force and more like a military force. And I question who it is really that they represent, especially when you look really, really carefully. If you know enough about symbolism and architecture, and then you study this building, there's something a little bit strange about it. They have a thing called the eternal flame, which you just see here. It's a bit weird. It was the eternal flame that actually led me to the modern Prometheus. But this is, it's maybe better not to look at this too much, but the fire and the water, it's surrounded by water. Fire and water. Fire, its elemental symbolism is the pyramid. Water, its elemental symbol is the upside down pyramid. So that is an upside down pyramid and a right side up pyramid, and that's the 6-pointed star. Does that show us who they're really allied to and who they're really protecting? I don't know, but it's a bit weird. But again, maybe it's best not to think about it too much. The Norman Shore building, by the way, the original New Scotland Yard, an interesting tidbit, when you see like the grey stone, all of that was quarried by slave labour, well, prison labour, Dartmoor prison, so these Dartmoor granite. So they built a police headquarters using prison labour. They're literally like forcing the prisoners to build the very symbol of their own enslavement, which is a bit awkward also when you think about it. Now, recently the police made an announcement that they are changing of the guard. The change of the guard at Buckingham Palace has always been a fairly high security military parade. Maybe the police have been doing it for so long, they've started to absorb some of the military tactics, because I don't know, it's changed. It's become a little bit strange up there, and so earlier on I thought I'd go and have a look so that I could document it. So earlier on in the drizzle I went to the changing of the guard. So I've been rushing down here to try and see this security operation that's now happening on the Mall. So I thought that police car was going up. This entire road is now going to be shut every time there is a guard change. And if you see all these vehicles up here, they're about to form a sort of Afghanistan-style militarized checkpoint to allow the change of the guard to take place in a safe manner. A safe manner. Really just wanted to come up here and just show you what your money's being spent on, or maybe what my money's been spent on, I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to go and have a look.
No, está esperando que viene pasta,
It was quite funny just then. The two ladies on horseback, they stopped and they were talking to like a policeman with a gun jacket on or whatever, or stab jacket or gun jacket. And as they were walking away with their horses, the two ladies were chatting and they said, "Oh no, yeah, I know. I've known him for a long time. We went to the academy together. He's a really good bloke. He really knows what he's doing. He's an ex-Marine, so he's one of the best." So the best police officers have military training, apparently. I thought they were supposed to be members of the public, just with uniforms, but no.
Next Marine.
whole thing's sealed off around here. They have armed guards in every sort of opening, and all this is being done apparently because of the what happened in Berlin, the truck attack in Berlin. And you could say that, it's because I've actually got a lot of negativity put towards me in the last few weeks to do with how I talk about my feelings about the police. I'm just going to hop over this fence. Because sometimes when people watch my videos, it's because they see a thumbnail of a police officer, and they, I guess it's a bit clickbaity or something, and they click it, and then they hear me say things like, they just hear me being very critical about the presence of the police, possibly like I am in this video, and they don't, they don't carry on watching just to show that I am actually just a wildlife photographer. I'm just joking. I find what's going on here at Buckingham Palace a little bit strange for several reasons. One of the main reasons is people will say, there's a threat from terrorism or whatever, and so we have to, it's only natural that there's extra security measures. But, I'd ask, what is it that they're actually protecting here? Are they protecting the people? It looks like that, doesn't it? But actually there are similar amounts of people, similar congregations of people all over the capital, like on Oxford Street or on Knightsbridge or on Leicester Square, or really anywhere you go in this capital there are massive hordes of people moving around like rivers. But they're not protecting them everywhere in the capital, they're just protecting them here at Buckingham Palace. And that's possibly not so much because they care so deeply about protecting the people, but because an attack on people at places like Buckingham Palace would affect the business model. So it is really in response to protection of the business model. And I find that just sort of mildly suspicious. My suspicion really is rooted upon what I see as the lack of evidence of any real potent existential threat that isn't actually created by the intelligence services themselves. And my suspicions are not without historical precedent. Have you ever heard of an event known as the Jubilee Plot? The Jubilee Plot happened on Constitution Hill, which is this sort of long thoroughfare that leads down to Buckingham Palace. And it was back in Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee year, 1887. And it's where Queen Victoria's carriage came down this road, going to and fro from Buckingham Palace. Okay, she wants me to go on the pavement. Okay, that's fine. And a guy opened fire with a gun at Queen Victoria, and the press had a field day with it. Security was heightened to like a massive level, and essentially they were very worried about an existential terrorist threat coming from Ireland. But now I want to quote to you from a newspaper article in 2002. So this is from the Daily Telegraph in May 2002, and it's titled, "When the Prime Minister Plotted to Kill the Queen." On June the 21st, 1887, Queen Victoria celebrated her Golden Jubilee with a grand procession through the streets of London, culminating in a service of thanksgiving at Westminster Abbey. It was a magnificent national occasion designed to show off the greatness of Britain at a powerful and self-confident moment in her history. Yet for several months, a terrorist plot had been hatched to strike at the heart of the Victorian establishment on its very day of self-celebration. 3 Irish-American dynamitards, which is a new word on me, dynamitards, that's a new meme for 2017. 3 Irish-American dynamitards had landed at Liverpool from America, intending to assassinate the Queen, other members of the royal family, and if possible, also members of the Tory cabinet of the Prime Minister Lord Salisbury. If it had succeeded, this would have been the most crushing blow ever struck to the British state, yet this demonic plan was actually orchestrated by the British intelligence services and authorised by Lord Salisbury himself. This is the astonishing revelation contained in a book published next month, Fenian Fire, the British government plot to assassinate Queen Victoria, by the investigative historian and former Sunday Telegraph defence correspondent Christy Campbell. He has proved beyond doubt that what the 1887 press dubbed the Jubilee plot was in fact planned by the British Secret Service and sanctioned by the Prime Minister in order to achieve two crucial objectives. The first was to help to uncover other terrorist networks on mainland Britain, so having plants in terrorist cells, organising terrorist events, false flag events, in order to help them in their strategic purposes for rooting out other terrorist events. The second objective was to discredit the political movement for Irish Home Rule. So they wanted to demonise Ireland, and in order to do that, for their own political aims, they decided to orchestrate a very, very high-profile false flag attack. And the interesting thing, of course, about this is that this was completely these events, or the true nature of the Jubilee plot, was not known by the general public for over 100 years, or over 100, or nearly 120 years. Do you think there's any parity with what is going on today? You know, they're telling the children about the flame. What does it mean? The burning torch, kiddies, what does that mean? The year after the Jubilee plot, 1888, was when that orange building there, the Norman Shaw building, was the new Scotland Yard Police headquarters. And being a tour guide for a living, I had to do a lot of research into things like Jack the Ripper, which included having a look at a lot of newspaper articles from 1888 talking about the murders and talking about the police and all of that. And it's very, very clear from those newspaper articles at the time, from Fleet Street, of course, which is where all the newspapers were based, that the press were highly critical of the police because of the fact they were turning into a militarised unit. They accused them of being essentially run by the army and run by the military, and instead of being a civilian force, were in fact just part of the military industrial complex. And funny how life repeats itself, but I don't know. I think in 2017 somebody has to be keeping an eye on the police, because you could say that we can't do without them, but there are certain things about them that we could definitely do without.